Welcome to part 2 on my SC engine rebuild. Today we're going to evaluate the crankshaft, or both of these crankshafts, and talk about the differences between these two, and also take a look at the rods and make sure that they are serviceable. And I'm going to take one of these to the machine shop to be probably reground. Most likely this one, and I'll explain why. In part 1 we evaluated the case. It is a standard case, which is good news, but it's still going out for evaluation. Make sure all the bores are lined up and the correct size for the new bearings. So today I'm going to measure the crankshaft kind of in the same idea. It doesn't have to be super accurate, but I want to know if the crank is reground already. You can only regrind these cranks so many times before you lose the hardness on the journals. They're case hardened. The depth of the hardening diminishes as you grind. So we want to evaluate that and make sure these aren't junk to begin with. There's no sense putting money in them if they're no good. This is the crank I took out in part 1, and it was heavily corroded. I cleaned it up somewhat, but there's still some pitting on these rod journals. These were taped with masking tape, and they fared pretty well. They probably could just be polished, assuming the dimensions are okay. But the pitting on these rod journals is a little much. So let's measure it anyways and see if there's room to grind out the pits. This time I'm going to be using some better tools, micrometers, to measure these. These are not digital. These are the old school veneer style. This is 1 to 2 inches and 2 to 3 inches. So I'm going to write all the numbers down, and then I'm going to compare them to the specs afterward. That way there, I'm not influenced at all by the numbers. I just want to see what they are and then compare it to the book. There is a standard here, 1-inch blank, that you can use to zero out the micrometer, which it is. That's one way to calibrate it. So put that back and get to work. I'm gonna wipe all the dust off of it. I'm starting at the number 1 main bearing and moving back. Okay, we're right there in the middle. So the way I read this is it's 1 inch because the standard was 1 inch, and it's all the way almost out to the limit. So it's 1.9. The first line is exposed, so it's 1.925. So I write that down. And then I can tell that where this line intersects this dial, it's between 22 and 23. It looks like it's a little less than halfway, but there's no guessing on this. We write down the 22. So I'm writing that 22. And then to establish where it is between the line, we follow these ones. It looks like the 3 is perfectly lined up. That becomes the number. Here's how the numbers shake out. This is, accurate to like 4 decimal places. So the last one is the 10,000ths position. So that should be correct. I'm going to add it up and just double check. I get 1.9473 on that. And then just a quick sanity check to make sure I remember how to do this right. I am going to use my digital tool just to make sure I'm in the right ballpark. So this measures 1.948. So the more accurate measurement is 1.9473. It's the right ballpark. I'm going to do that one more time, and then I'm going to measure it in this direction. Without, pulling it off, I'm getting the 22 and I'm getting the 3, which that is the number. So I'm gonna now go this direction and see if it differs. Give it a little wiggle, make sure there's no weird play. And this one, I'm eyeballing it here. It's between the 22 and the 23, but this time it's lined up on the 4. So it's 1/10,000ths bigger in this direction. So verify that it's perfectly clean. Do it one more time. Wiggle, wiggle. We're measuring right here in the middle. And yeah, it lines up to the 4. So I'm going to write that down as a second measurement, 1.9474. These first course numbers don't change. The 1.925, the 22, it's only the 10,000ths place, which is this dial. That's the one that changes. So I'm going to call this number 1 for the counterweighted crank. This journal is much bigger, so we got to switch this micrometer out for this one. So this one is under 2 inches. This one is over 2 inches. This is, I think, 50 and 55 or 55 and 60. I can't remember on millimeters, so I'll have to look at the book. But this one also has a standard, so let's zero it out, make sure everything is happy. Zero on the micrometer. Put that standard back in there and we do the same exact thing. Open it up, see what we get. Same thing, wiggle, wiggle, rotate. And I'm gonna pop this one off and look at the numbers. So we'll go through the exact same, this works the exact same way. So it's 2, because it's between 2 and 3 inches, 2.1, and the same thing, there's only one line showing. So this is gonna be 2.125. That's what this number is telling me. And then here we're right between the 19 and the 20. So we're gonna write the 19 down. And here it's much closer to the 20 than is the 19. So we're expecting to see something line up over here, and it's the 8. So that's 3 zeros and then an 8. So we add all these up, we get 8, 14, 4, 1, 2.1448. This time, I'm getting the 6. So wiggle it around a little bit. And I'm getting the 7. So I'm gonna write this down as a 7. Sometimes when you pop it off, it can alter it a little bit. So I'm gonna call this one a 7, so 2.1447. And then I'm gonna measure it now in this direction and see what we get. 1.5536. This is the number 4 on the counterweighted. So next page is gonna be the rod journals. And these are the rusty guys. So I'm going to measure these. These are going to require this larger micrometer, it looks like. 2.0573. 2.0566, number 4. So that completes this crank. I'm going to put it aside and measure the second one. Now this crank was stored with a bunch of like wheel bearing grease on it. So it is not rusty at all. 676. So let's just compare it. Let's go back and look real quick. This crank has a bigger number. Instead of 1.9474, it's 1.9676. So this is a larger diameter. Looks like that crank has already been ground. So let's go through all the numbers and I'll just report back. All right, all the numbers are in and I'm gonna consult these 2 books, the little spec book and Maestro's Inner Circle. All right, so for the SC, which is what we have here, bearing number 1 is supposed to be, this is in millimeters, they give it in limits, 49.991 to 49.975. That's number 1. Bearing number 2 is the same as the S90, so it tells you to go over here for bearing number 2. 54.990 to 54.971. That's for number 2 and number 3 mains. 39.982 to 39.971. That's number 4, and these are the standard sizes. Let's see what Harry says. I'm using 2 different references because sometimes there are mistakes in the books. Not on something this important, but let's just double check. So Harry has the limits are the same, 54.971, 54.990, and he just has them in inches. So I'm gonna write that over here. It's going to be 2.1642 to 2.1650. The Pello book does have the correct conversions from millimeter to inches. That's pretty straightforward. So looking at the non-counterweighted crank, which is the one I just measured last, it should be between 1.9675 and 1.968. Looks like Harry didn't want to round that because it's right between. So this number 1 bearing checks out. It measures a little bit close to the low side, but it is within spec. So I'm going to give that one a check. The number 2 bearing is the bigger one. I think I said, 2.1643. 2.1642 is the lower limit. It's within 10 thousandths on the lower limit, but it is within the limit. Number 3 is the same. This one is, also within the limit. Then number 4 is 1.5734, and it should be 1.5737 is the minimum. So this one is a little bit under the limit there. Okay, here are the numbers, the limits for the rods. 2.0866 max, 2.0861 min. I'm getting all of these. There's only one at the min, 2.0861. This one is almost at the max. So these are all within spec. So this crank, which is the non-counterweighted crank, is within standard spec, except for the number 4 is kind of like a mediocre, a little bit out of range. That was this crank. It's in really nice condition. There's no gouges, nothing you can feel with a fingernail. Probably could use a light polish, and this one would probably be good to go, with the exception of this bearing, which is arguably the least important bearing on out of the 4. Okay, now back to the first one that we measured. 1.9473 is well below these limits. It's about 20 thousandths below. So we need to write down the new limits for something that is ground. All right, I've completed the numbers for a second ground and first ground. This is standard. So let's take a look at that first crank we measured. The mains are coming in at 1.947. So that would be less than first ground. It's coming in second ground, 1.9478 would be the lower limit. It's already below the lower limit for second ground. The number 2 bearing, so this is just put that's a sad face using my left hand. It's kind of awkward. 2.145 on this one. 2.145 is so this one is within limits. That one gets a check mark. It's within limits. 2.145 is right there within that. And then the number 3 is 2.1445. It's also within the limits for second ground, but number 1 is out of the limits. So you typically, you typically would grind all 3. Number 4, let's just check that one. Number 4 would be 1.5537. It's also below limits. So this one gets a sad face. So this crank is already second ground, below the limit, so it'd have to go third under. Let's just check the rods for fun. Here's the rods are 2.057. So the rods are already third ground because they're way smaller than second ground. So this engine is this crankshaft is, this thing is completely worn out. It's already at third under on the rods. You can't grind it any more than that. The other thing I will sometimes do on these crankshafts is I'll suspend them like from my drill press here. I'm just gonna hang it off of the vise. So while it's suspended there on this string, I can tap it with my hammer. It makes that ringing sound. It's 1280 hertz. So now the non-counterweighted crankshaft is suspended, and it has the gears on it, and it's got some grease on it, but let's see what it sounds like. It does not sound like it's ringing at all. I got 2890 hertz, you know, based on this is a guitar tuner app, by the way. But just, there's a huge difference between the way this crank sounds and the other crank. This may not need to be ground, but it probably should be checked for cracks. It just, without the counterweights, it's not gonna ring as much, but it's a little different. This one weighs 21.6 pounds. This one, it's not really fair because it has the gears on it, but it's only 17.6 pounds with the gears. That's, you know, probably a few tenths of a pound, not much. But yeah, this is a much lighter, lower rotating mass. It's not only about the total weight, but it's about how much weight from the center axis it is. So these weights here, or the counterweights, are really far away from the rotating axis. I haven't measured the rods yet. I don't have the best tools for measuring the rods, but I do know that these rods came from this crank, which appears to be in great condition. So I believe that these rods are rebuildable. Almost all the rods are rebuildable. So these will go out for new bushings, honing, resizing, and also weight balance. So I'm not gonna spend time on that. That's just gonna get done by someone else who has better tools than I do. All right, so decision time. What are you guys doing if you're in my situation? I have a choice of the non-counterweighted crank, which is, in some cases, like a lot of people like it because it has less inertia, it spins up faster. That would be useful for like a race car. It doesn't mean the RPMs are limited, it just means there's more vibration at high RPMs. So for my car, it's gonna be a mild build, probably 1720. It doesn't need to have quick spin up. My 356 is not a hot rod or outlaw or anything like that. It's basically just a stock car. I actually like the way it drives as a 1720, and I have a hot rod on the other side of the camera. So I have a fast car, 356 is a slow car fast. So I'm a little less likely to use the C crank. I want something that is an authentic SC feel and smooth. So that's my opinion on that. The other crank, which is severely ground, it's, you know, not a totally lost cause. There are shops that can weld and spray weld and refinish and bring it back to standard if you want. I don't know that I want that for my car. It's a little risky with something that has that many miles on it, and it doesn't sound like it's cracked or broken, but you know, do you really want to put an old crank in a nice engine that has, you know, significant numbers for my car? Probably don't. So that leaves me with either using the C crank anyways, or maybe sourcing another one. I thought I had a third crank somewhere. I haven't found it yet. It could be in an attic somewhere. Or I could buy a new crank. So I know there's Chinese cranks available, and I know there's American-made cranks by Scat. Probably not interested in doing a stroker crank, but I would be interested in, you know, doing a stock size crank that's forged, billet forged thing. So let me know, what do you guys like for crankshafts? Chinese, spray welded, C crank, or a scat crank is kind of what it comes down to. So give me your opinions on that and let me know what you would do. Cheers.